Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. Also, welcome back to Truly Horror Tuesdays, the brand new series that I have started here on the channel, where we talk about the true stories, true events and true crimes that have happened around certain horror movies. The behind the scenes stuff that, let's face it, is sometimes stranger and scarier than the movies themselves. Last week we talked about the real crimes of Ed Gein, who loosely inspired multiple characters and movies such as Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Silence of the Lambs. If you haven't seen that one yet already, I will leave a link for it somewhere here, so don't forget to go check that one out. It's an interesting story. It's dark, but it's interesting. This week I want to talk about the toxic set of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about the movie and then we'll get into the behind the scenes events. Now, just before we begin, I want to make it clear that I love The Shining. It's not in my top 10 horror movies of all time, but it's close, it's up there, and I really enjoy the movie and I also really enjoyed the novel. This is not a Shining or Stanley Kubrick bashing episode. This is purely to hopefully educate and highlight events that took place while filming. So The Shining was released in 1980 and it follows the Torrance family, Jack, Wendy and their son Danny, who has abilities that allow him to see visions, have premonitions and communicate telepathically with other people who have the same abilities that he does. Jack gets a job as a winter caretaker at the Overlook Hotel while it's closed for the winter season, so he and his family move up to the Rocky Mountains. Whilst there though, they deal with ghostly visions, isolation and Jack's deteriorating mental health. The director of The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, was an American director, producer and screenwriter. Not only did Kubrick direct The Shining, but he also produced it and co-wrote the screenplay. And that's often how it would work with Kubrick's movies. He would take on multiple roles so that he could control as many aspects of the filmmaking process as possible. Kubrick has some impressive movies in his filmography. As well as making The Shining, he also made Spartacus, Lolita, 2001, A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut. He's often cited as one of the greatest and most influential directors in movie history. But he's well known for being a demanding perfectionist and somewhat neurotic when it comes to his work. Kubrick would often demand an unhealthy level of dedication from his actors and multiple takes of a particular scene until he felt sure it was good enough. The Shining actually broke world records for a number of takes of a scene with spoken dialogue. The scene in which Wendy is backing up the stairs away from Jack while she's swinging the bat was actually filmed 127 times. And the scene where Halloran is talking to Danny in the kitchen was filmed a whopping 148 times. The Shining is based off of the Stephen King book of the same name, released in 1977. However, the movie makes multiple and really significant changes to the book. So much so that Stephen King is well known for despising this adaptation of his book. The changes ranged from the level of supernatural activity, the amount of attention that was given to alcoholism, characteristics of Jack and Wendy, family dynamics, plot points, and probably most famously the ending. And given that the book was written at a certain point in King's life where he was struggling with addiction and he put a lot of himself and his situation into the character of Jack, you can understand why he didn't like it. He must have a really emotional connection to the story, and not only because he is the author of the book, but because it's semi-autobiographical. According to Kubrick's co-writer of The Shining, Kubrick's philosophy was to always adapt a book rather than to create a brand new original screenplay, and always to choose a book that wasn't a masterpiece because then you can always improve it. Ouch. I wonder if Stephen King ever heard that little bit of information. The Shining came about after the less than brilliant box office success of Kubrick's previous film, Barry Lyndon, that was released in 1975. Not only was it not a box office success, but critics also described it as too long and too slow. Kubrick decided that he needed to make a movie that was workable on a commercial level, but also artistically fulfilling for him. Apparently, Kubrick asked his staff to bring him lots of different horror books so that he could read through them looking for his next project. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but apparently Kubrick's secretary could hear the sound of books flying across the room and hitting the wall of Kubrick's office after he'd rejected them after reading only a couple of pages. But then, after not hearing a thud for quite a while, Kubrick's secretary entered his office only to find him happily reading The Shining. I found the other casting considerations for Jack so interesting. While Jack Nicholson was Stanley Kubrick's first choice, they did also consider Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford, and Robin Williams. Jack Nicholson apparently suggested Jessica Lange as Wendy, but Stanley Kubrick wanted Shelley Duvall. I actually think that Jessica Lange would have been a really good choice. But Shelley Duvall got the role, and it is her that we are going to talk about today, and her less than pleasant experience filming The Shining. The combination of his perfectionism and disappointment at the failure of his previous movie made Kubrick determined to make a movie that was nothing less than perfect. And unfortunately, it was Shelley Duvall who suffered the most through his pursuit of perfection. Shelley Duvall, who has since retired from public and lives in Texas now, has openly talked about The Shining in interviews in the past and talked about the mental torture that she endured during filming, both emotionally and psychologically. Duvall said that the role of Wendy was both physically and emotionally draining, as she had to constantly be in a heightened state of panic and fear and constantly screaming and crying due to these certain expectations of Kubrick. In The Shining, there were multiple scenes where Duvall had to act scared, where she had to scream and cry, where she had to act in a scene that was physically intimidating, such as the scene where Jack is axing through the door that Wendy is hiding behind. And each one of these scenes was filmed time and time again. Apparently each scene was filmed approximately no less than 35 times. There is one scene where Duvall has to run around the hotel, not only crying and screaming, but carrying her on-screen son. And a scene like that being done multiple times is going to eventually have a physical strain on you as well as an emotional one. The worst though was apparently the stair scene, which I mentioned earlier. In the scene, Wendy is backing up the staircase away from Jack while swinging a bat. This scene was filmed 127 times. By the end of the scene, apparently Duvall was just completely exhausted. She was dehydrated from crying so much, and her throat had got hoarse from screaming so much as well. According to Shelley Duvall, she would try to get herself prepared for that scene, try to get herself in that headspace by listening to sad songs and remembering sad things and events that have happened to her in her life. But maintaining that level of emotional heightenedness, that level of sadness, it takes a lot, and eventually her body would just have enough and override it and say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, the body and mind can only take so much, and filming for long days, take after take after take for about 13 months, that can't not affect you. Duvall would also slip in and out of illness during the course of the filming over the 13 months, and even began to lose large clumps of hair due to the high levels of stress that she was experiencing. Stanley Kubrick apparently tried to keep Shelley Duvall isolated on set, telling cast and crew to stay away from her where possible, to ignore her where possible. He even apparently said, don't sympathise with Shelley, so life on set was quite an isolated one for her. Even Jack Nicholson, the lead, had noticed the difference in treatment of himself and others and that of Shelley Duvall. And he apparently said to her, I don't know how you do it. He would speak positively about The Shining and the director, Stanley Kubrick, but he would also say that Kubrick would become a different director when around Duvall. Kubrick also never gave Duvall any positive feedback or compliments about her acting, despite the fact that he had actually headhunted her for the role. He never praised her, but he would praise his other lead, Jack Nicholson, about his acting, and often would do it while Duvall was sat next to or stood next to Nicholson. What's interesting is that the Wendy of the movie is nothing like the Wendy in the book. The film Wendy is meek and gentle and submissive to her husband. She seems ill-equipped to deal with her husband's descent into madness and cruelness, while the book Wendy is a lot stronger and self-reliant, and in the book Wendy never screams or cries with hysteria. According to Kubrick's co-writer of The Shining, the movie Wendy also originally had more lines of dialogue, but Kubrick would keep cutting the lines and sometimes would even cut them without telling Duvall. It kind of feels like, now this is a personal opinion, but it kind of feels as though at times Duvall was almost set up to fail. Kubrick felt frustrated and disappointed with Duvall's performance, but honestly, it gets to a point where actors can only do so much with the script that they're given and the direction that they're given. In defence of his actions and treatment of Duvall, Kubrick said that it happens when actors are unprepared. He blamed the multiple refilming of scenes on Duvall's inability to remember lines and how that concentration to remember her lines was picked up on camera. Despite the fact that Kubrick is well known for filming scenes many times, and again that he headhunted Duvall for the role. Shelley Duvall has actually defended Stanley Kubrick. She has talked openly about the cruel and abusive treatment that she received on set and the effect that it had on her, both mentally and physically. But she has also said that Kubrick could also be warm and friendly towards her behind the scenes. That's nice, I suppose, and again, this is my personal opinion, sometimes being nice is not enough to outweigh the cruel treatment of somebody, and the pursuit of perfection and creation of art is not a valid enough reason to treat somebody the way that Shelley Duvall was treated on the set of The Shining. Okay guys, there you have it, the story behind the filming of The Shining and the unfortunate cruel treatment of Shelley Duvall. Let me know what you guys thought of today's story, and also let me know of any other stories like this that you would like me to cover. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. In the meantime though, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye guys.